Mr. Donnelly for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the Minister and departmental officials for being with us this morning. The Supplementary Estimate C 2017-18 request of $488,563 in new funding for the Fisheries and Aquaculture Clean Technology Adoption Program, which provides funding to, quote, assist Canada's fisheries and aquaculture industries in improving their environmental performance. As the Minister knows, the best way to improve the environmental performance of fish farms is to get them out of the water and onto land. And the Namgis First Nation is going to court this week seeking a judicial review of Fisheries and Oceans Canada policy that doesn't mandate testing for blood virus Piscine reovirus before the scheduled transfer of Atlantic smolts to Marine Harvest's open net salmon farm in the Namgis territory, and an injunction preventing the minister from issuing a license permitting the transfer of the smolts. And Chief Don Svenvik states, quote, we have made every attempt to engage Canada in good faith on their PRV policy and the transfer of Atlantic salmon into our territory, but it refused to consult with us. Namgis has no other option to protect wild salmon, our title and rights, and ultimately who we are as people, but to ask the court to intervene to prevent the serious, irreversible harm being visited upon us by Canada and Marine Harvest, unquote. So, Minister, will any of the allocated money be used to help transition farms out of First Nation territories and onto land? And Minister, when it comes to RAS, the train is leaving the station, and BC is not on it, and Canada is not on it. We have no strategy. Land-based closed containment aquaculture represents an opportunity for Canada, and BC in particular, to play a leading role in an emerging market. However, the opportunity is highly time-sensitive. Several commercial-scale Atlantic salmon land-based closed containment projects are already underway. U.S. has 6 facilities in development, which will produce more than 200,000 tons. Other countries are following their lead: Norway, Scotland, Denmark, Poland, South Africa, Switzerland, China, and France. Here in Canada, we have 3 facilities: Katerra, CanAqua, and Sustainable Blue. Between the 3 facilities, they're producing almost 1,000 tons. The U.S. plans to produce 20 times that. BC is uniquely positioned to take advantage of the trend towards safe closed containment. The growth path for this industry could be greatly accelerated if appropriate incentives were put in place and regulations. So I'll leave it at that and ask for your comment on that, Minister.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Finn, for the question. You covered a number of significant areas. I'll offer some quick comments, and the Deputy may have some specific answers to the more precise questions around funding opportunities. With respect to the Namgis, we have obviously taken note of their court action. You'll understand we cannot and should not comment on the specific elements of a court case. I have had the opportunity in previous visits to British Columbia to meet with the Namgis leadership, so I understand personally, and senior officials from the department are in regular contact. So obviously I understand their sense of frustration, but the assertion that we do not and have not consulted with them, I don't think is necessarily representative. But
when did you meet with them, Mr. Chair?
I met with them on a visit to British Columbia last year. I can get you the exact date. We've had ongoing discussions with them. But with respect to the broader issue around aquaculture, and Finn, you and I have talked about this, our parliamentary secretary and other colleagues from British Columbia have spoken to me about it a number of times as well. And I know that Terry has visited the Katerra facility and has worked with our department in his capacity as a parliamentary secretary to identify potential opportunities for some of that funding around innovation and around testing whether that technology for closed containment land-based aquaculture can in fact be used much more broadly from an economic and environmental sustainability perspective. Your specific question around whether the Fisheries and Aquaculture Clean Technology Adoption Program might be a source of funding, I would certainly be open to an application to that fund that would advance that discussion. I don't disagree at all, Finn, with your analysis of the potential of that land-based aquaculture, the importance of British Columbia not ending up behind the parade of other jurisdictions that in fact have gone further. So if through our department, that's a modest amount of money, that fund is not a huge amount of money. My colleague, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, may have potential other funding sources. I've had a conversation with him about that, and I know our parliamentary secretary has. Mr. Chair, perhaps if the deputy had a specific thing that she wanted to add. Scott. They'll do it automatically.
Can I just jump in? I've got 1 minute left, so I appreciate your response. And I have one other quick question I wanted to get in on a different topic with regards to the CEDP and the PIP, Salmon Enhancement Program, which is Community Economic Development and the Public Involvement Program. I've been led to believe that there has, under the CEDP, there's been no program increases since the early 90s, no wage increases, no capital allocation since the early 90s, no upgrading for aging hatcheries, no equipment replacement, no training plans. First 12 Nation hatcheries have closed due to program reductions. Annual contracting meetings in Vancouver have been eliminated. No funds to address inflation at 14% since the early 90s. Contracts used to negotiate each year now are allocations. 12 CEDP programs have been closed due to budget reductions. And on the public involvement program side, there's been no program increases since the 90s. For every DFO dollar contributed, communities provide 10 times more through volunteer labor, operational materials, vehicle use, business donations, and the PIP groups involved are all in salmon recovery activities, fish production, habitat restoration, education, classroom incubation. These groups are dealing with inflation like CEDP, and they're difficult to recruit new people due to budget concerns. So in addition to inflation costs and other concerns, infrastructure, hatchery...
Mr. Donnelly, your time is up. I'm going to have to
Can't even
iterate there.
get through this list. That's so long.
You get a
I'm
brief
just wondering
response,
on
please.
a brief response on those issues.
Sure. So thanks, Mr. Chair. And Finn, I'd be happy to look in. Certainly sounds like a dire picture you painted of that program. I know the importance of the Salmonid Enhancement Program, the Community Economic Development Program. I have heard every time I've been to British Columbia, but also from my colleagues from that province, about the enormously successful work that program has done. So if the funding has eroded, and certainly I don't disagree with the numbers that the circumstance you described, I'd be happy to look into it. We can confirm your specific questions. We will be happy to get back to you with the exact detail of those programs. But I'd also be happy to look with the department at ways that we could in fact improve the funding, because if we're leveraging $10 for every one that we put in, imagine if we put in $1.25, the benefits that we could potentially get. So I'd be happy to look at how we could perhaps over time improve that and get you the exact figures with respect to the financing.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan, 7 minutes, please.